All right. Okay, so hi everyone. It's so good to see you virtually. My name is Sabrina Wise. I use she, her pronouns, and I work in the Career Engagement Office here at SU. And I'm joined today by two wonderful colleagues who are going to be helping out. So I want to give them a chance to introduce themselves. Melissa, do you want to say hi?
Yeah, hi everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Melissa Minato. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm also a staff member in the Career Engagement Office. And I'll turn it over to Abby to also introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. My name is Abby. I work in the Albers Placement Center, which is the career center for the business school, and I'm an undergrad career advisor.
Wonderful. Thanks, Melissa and Abby. And thank you all for making the choice to be here with us today, for giving some of your precious first week of the quarter time to this prep workshop for this big event. And I especially want to welcome the newest members of our Seattle U community. I know there are some folks here who are new to SU as of this quarter, so we're just so glad to have you here. A few housekeeping tips for today. This workshop is being recorded. It'll be emailed to you afterwards and made available on Albers Placement Center's YouTube channel. And so that's going to allow you to refer to this later. You can always come back to this information and check it out again. And we will have time for Q&A at the end. So be thinking about your questions as we go. You're welcome to type those into the chat at any time, or you can just save them and ask them during the Q&A. But Melissa and Abby, who you just met, are going to be monitoring the chat, and they'll make sure that we get to as many of your questions as we can in the time today. And if you have a question that isn't answered today, we can always chat afterwards. So with that, let's jump right in. Our plan for today, we're going to talk a little bit about what to expect at the Spring Career and Internship Fair, and then go over sort of the key steps you need in order to be ready for the fair. So creating or updating your Handshake profile, actually registering for the fair, signing up for sessions with employers, and then just preparing to talk about yourself and to ask questions to recruiters and kind of how to make the most of that. And finally, we'll have a chance to answer some questions. So Spring Career and Internship Fair, I assume you all know it is happening or you would not be here on this call today, but it is happening on April 22nd from 10:30 to 1:30. And registration open today, so go for it. If you haven't already registered, you can do that now, or you can do that with us as we walk you through the process today, but definitely save your spot as soon as you can. It's the last fair of the school year, so we're really excited to get started with it. It is our last fair of the year, but it is not, it's our third virtual fair of the year. So we've already done virtual fairs in the Handshake platform a few times this year. They've gone really well. We've gotten really good feedback on them. So we're kind of excited to introduce you to this new approach. The most important thing to know about the Spring Fair is that there are two different ways you're going to be able to interact with employers. So there are group sessions and there are one-on-one sessions. The group sessions are half an hour long, and they could have anywhere from 2 students in them to 50 students in them. Sky is kind of the limit, and the employer will shape it however they want. So they might give you like a PowerPoint or a panel, or they might do a Q&A about their organization. And those are open to everyone who is attending the fair. You just have to sign up for them in advance. Then you've got one-on-one sessions, and those are a little different. They're shorter, so they're just 10 minutes, and it's just you and a recruiter, and you're kind of just getting to know each other. Employers for these sessions, they can actually set preferences for who meets with them. So those might come down to like certain majors or years or GPAs or things like that. And that's why it's going to be really important to update your Handshake profile, which we'll talk about in a minute. We're finding that most employers don't set preferences for one-on-one sessions, but some of them do. So it's just a good thing to be aware of. And really the purpose of these sessions, whether it's one-on-one or group, it's to ask some thoughtful questions and make an initial connection with an employer. This is not the last conversation you're ever going to have with an employer that you're interested in. So hopefully you'll make the most of the time, but also take a little bit of the pressure off yourself. You don't have to achieve everything in the world in a 10-minute or a 30-minute session. I'm sure that you all have reasons that you're interested in attending the fair, but these are some of the top ones that we end up hearing from students. One is just that it's really a great way to meet real live humans who work at these companies and these nonprofits and these government agencies who want to hire SU students. So employers have already started signing up. You can start to see some of them in Handshake. Right now, we have employers ranging from the Peace Corps to the IRS, to social services agencies like Seneca. There's like a huge range in there. We've got national corporations, little local nonprofits. And in a minute, I'll show you how you can see those employers who are signed up. But what's really great is that if an employer is attending this fair, they want to connect with SU students. They want to hire SU students. That is why they are there. Another great thing about the fair is that you can kind of discover some new opportunities that you might not have thought about before. My favorite stories from the fair are always from students who decided to kind of take a chance on meeting an employer they hadn't heard about before, and then they ended up discovering a really great fit. So I hope that you'll find a balance between meeting with employers you've maybe had your eye on before and meeting with employers that you didn't know about before the fair. And finally, what's great about the virtual format, you're not going to have to wait in line. So you're going to pre-schedule your sessions. You're going to know exactly when you're meeting with people. You don't have to kind of like lurk around a booth and wait for your moment to talk. You're going to just know when it's time to go. And so that's just a nice way that you can be prepared. So as I mentioned, this fair is being hosted in Handshake. And most of you used Handshake to register for this workshop today. So you're at least a little bit familiar with it, which is awesome. But basically, you're going to use Handshake a lot throughout your time at SU and even after you graduate, if you haven't already been doing that. It's really your one-stop shop for connecting with employers who want to hire SU students for jobs, for internships, for all sorts of opportunities. You can use Handshake to find jobs and internships, right? So there is a job board feature. There's hundreds of new jobs that get added every day, both on and off campus. You can find out about events in Handshake. So not just career fairs, but other great events that employers are putting on where you can learn more about what they do and sort of participate in your own professional development. So that's really great. And then you have a chance to actually build a profile in Handshake, and employers can see that profile. So this is a way that you can stand out to employers. You can share a little bit about yourself with them. And as you build out that profile and you start interacting, Handshake is going to start giving you custom recommendations. They're going to start suggesting, here's an employer you should check out, or here's an internship or a job you should check out. So it's a really great tool. And because of all this, the work that you're going to put into setting up your Handshake profile for the fair is really going to serve you well for a long time. So you're going to be using this profile that you build throughout your time at SU and after you graduate. It's definitely worth it. All right. So with that, we're going to kind of jump into how to get ready for this fair. And the first step is updating your Handshake profile. So I'm actually going to switch and try to show you this live, sort of what this looks like. So I'm going to stop sharing for a second, and I'm going to share a different screen. Here we are. All right. Can I get a thumbs up for if folks are able to see this? It's the Handshake homepage. Okay, thank you. See some thumbs up. Awesome. So here we are. This is the Handshake homepage. You can get to this through the Seattle U Career Engagement website, or just searching Handshake on the Seattle U website. But here we are. And the first thing you're going to want to do when you're getting ready for this fair is update your profile. And the reason this is so important is that we want employers to actually be able to find you, right? We want them to be able to follow up with you. Like I mentioned, some employers are going to set certain qualifications for one-on-one sessions. And so we want to make sure that you have shown correct information in Handshake so that you're eligible for all of the sessions that you might want to go to. So to edit your profile, you're going to just go up here. You're going to click on, it's either going to be your picture or your initials if you haven't added a picture yet. So this is going to take me to my profile. And I have a student profile in Handshake because I'm also a grad student here at SU in addition to working in career engagement. So here is my profile. And if you haven't created yours yet, it won't be quite as filled in, obviously, but that's what you get to do now. So things we're going to want to update: your school year, your grad date, your major, and your GPA. Those are kind of the most important ones that we want to make sure you have updated, because those are the things that employers might base some of their qualifications around. So for school year, you can just click this little pencil that's going to be up here by your picture. You'll see that this gives you a space to edit your school year, fill in that information there. All right. And then if we go to your education section here, you're going to be able to click this little edit icon. And this is where you can adjust your major, your GPA, like any information like that. But major and GPA and your grad date are especially important to update. Of course, feel free to update everything else too, like add a little bit about yourself, fill in more information about your experiences, but bare minimum, make sure you're updating those pieces so that employers can find you. The one other piece you can do in Handshake, and I do recommend doing, is actually uploading your resume before the fair and making sure that it's visible to employers. this is useful because after you have all your meetings at the fair, employers get a list of all the students they met with, and they will have the resume included in that if you have added a resume. So it's a really nice way to be able to stand out, not just during the fair, but after the fair too. So to get to that, we are going to go up to our, right back to the little icon of yourself, and we're going to go into documents. And in documents here, you can see there's a resume section. And over the years, I've uploaded 2 different resumes to Handshake. So I want to make sure that the one that is most up to date, which is this one, is the one that is visible to employers. And I'm going to make sure, yes, this is checked, a green check mark. It's visible to employers. If you haven't checked that box, it doesn't matter that your resume is up there because employers can't see it. So make sure that you actually check the box to make it visible. And once you've done that, you have the baseline information that you need to connect with employers at the fair. So once you've done that, time to actually register for the fair. So here we are, we're back on the Handshake homepage. You've already gotten emails about the fair. So if you want to just follow the link in those emails, great. Or you can just search for it in Handshake. So we'll go up to events and we're going to type in spring, career, and internship fair. And here it is. Okay, you can see we have some drop-in hours. We'll talk about those in a minute, but here is the 2021 Spring Career and Internship Fair. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. Here it is. This is what the registration page looks like. If you scroll all the way down, you can actually see the employers who have registered so far. Make sure you can click to see all of them. Sort of a nice list here. More employers are registering every day. So you definitely want to be checking back and seeing the new employers who sign up. But once you're ready to register, just click the register button and it's going to bring up a little pop-up. I don't know if you can see this, but it just says you're registered. What's next? Sign up for sessions. And now I'm going to actually switch back to the PowerPoint because I can't actually sign up for sessions with employers right now without confusing those employers. So I am going to show you some screenshots from a past fair. All right. Here we go. You should be able to see the PowerPoint. Thumbs up if so. Amazing. All right. So we've registered for the fair. You're registered. Now what? There's a second very important step, and that is to actually sign up for sessions with employers. Unless you sign up for sessions with employers, you're not going to have anybody to meet with. And you do want to make sure that you're signing up for those sessions in advance. Like I mentioned, more sessions and more employers are getting added every day. So what we recommend doing is signing up for sessions now that you see that you're interested in, and then checking back periodically so you can keep signing up for new sessions as they become available. So here's kind of what it looks like. You will have clicked that sign up for sessions button. You'll be looking at the fair and you'll be able to sign up for group sessions or one-on-one sessions. So for example, here's an employer that is offering group sessions. And you can say that they offer them at several different times. Sometimes employers will offer group sessions on different topics. So like keep an eye out for that too. Pick the topic that is most interesting to you, pick a time that works for you. These are going to be 30 minutes long. You'll click on the one that you want, and then it'll bring up this little confirmation screen and make sure you actually click confirm. And then that group session will be added to your schedule. Pretty similar for one-on-one sessions. So you'll see the employer listed. If they have one-on-one sessions, they'll be listed underneath like they are here. This is a good example because this employer has 3 different representatives attending the fair. You can kind of see that here. So look at who those representatives are and who it makes the most sense for you to meet with. Like here is someone who works on tax and someone who works on audit. If you're interested in tax, see if you can get a meeting with Ashley. And then of course you can pick the time that works best for you as well. And once you've clicked confirm, you've added that to your schedule, you're going to start seeing a schedule that has been kind of built out for you that looks like this. It's going to have a list of all of your sessions that you've chosen. So that's a good way, like put those on your calendar right away, make sure that you have those saved. If you have to reschedule or cancel a session, which you really hope won't happen, but if something comes up, because we know life happens, go into your list of sessions, click on it, and make sure that you actually click cancel. This is super important. Like, first of all, you want to make sure that someone else can have that session if you can't make it, but also employers do track that. Like they can see if you've signed up and then didn't show. It's not a good look. They can make notes about that. It can hurt you in the future. So just make sure that you're making sure to cancel if you have to ahead of time. One other thing too is just make sure to give yourself breaks. Like these sessions are scheduled so they could be back to back. I don't know about you, but like I feel like I can only do a certain number of conversations back to back before I need a break. So just make sure you're like planning that in as you sign up for sessions. All right, so during the fair, it's the day of the fair, you've already built out your schedule, you're gonna go to Handshake, and there'll be like a big banner across the top that says you have a fair happening now or starting soon. So you can just click on that and it'll bring up your schedule, and you'll be able to sort of see what you have lined up for the day. So this is what your schedule might look like right here. And
Sabrina,
oh, sure.
Sorry to interrupt you, but this kind of segues into someone asked a question in the chat. What if you are interested in attending multiple sessions? So I think they're wondering, the schedule won't allow you to overschedule yourself. So you won't be able to sign up for multiple sessions at 12:30 or whatever. It will keep you from doing that. But you can sign up for as many sessions as you want that fit within that schedule. Hopefully that answered your question. Sorry.
Thank you. No, that's great. Thank you, Abby. That's a really good point. Definitely feel free to sign up for many sessions. Some people will plan to have sessions over the whole 3-hour span of the fair. Some people will be like, okay, I'm going to go for an hour and I'm just going to do a bunch of sessions back to back. It's whatever works best for you. Yeah, really good question. So during the fair, you'll be able to see your schedule. It'll look something like this. And when it's time for a session to actually start, you're going to have this little join video button that pops up. So pretty intuitive. You get to just click on that button and it will take you into something that looks like this. So we actually did a little test run of what it looks like in Handshake to be in one of these sessions. These folks are from our office, but it looks like this. It's not Zoom. It's Handshake's own video platform that they have, but it looks pretty similar to Zoom. It functions pretty similarly to Zoom. And if you want to, you can actually join a session up to 5 minutes early to kind of test out the audio, test out the video, make sure that things are working the way you want them to. You're going to have the option to do video, audio, or chat in your sessions. So definitely for the one-on-ones, whenever you can, video and audio on, that's really helpful if you can. If you need to switch to chat because of tech issues or anything, you have that option. And in group sessions, it's up to you whether you have video or audio on, and whether the employer has enabled that, but just make sure you're doing something to stand out. So that could just be making sure you ask a question in the chat or unmuting yourself and asking a question or something like that. So recap, because we just covered a bunch of steps. You want to go to the fair, great. Make sure that you're updating your profile in Handshake, and that includes uploading your resume. Make sure that you actually register for the fair, of course, and then sign up for sessions. And I'd say start signing up for sessions sooner rather than later while there are still lots of spots available, but then check back often because we always have a bunch more employers join the fair and add sessions as we get closer to the actual day. So I realize I've just thrown a lot of information out there. And before we move on into talking about how to kind of make the most of those sessions and how to prepare for those sessions, who has questions so far? Are there any other questions that have come up as I've just been sharing this?
Yeah, I have a question.
Great.
Is there a hard deadline for employers to sign up? Is there a cutoff date for them? Or can they sign up even the day before the fair?
That is a wonderful question. The deadline for employers to sign up for the fair is April 20th, and the fair is on April 22nd. So I would say after the 20th, there aren't going to be new employers being added. It's kind of like what you see there is what's happening, but I will tell you, we always, no matter how many times we remind employers to sign up, we always see a bunch of employers sign up at the last minute. So I bet you anything, there's going to be a bunch of employers who sign up on the 20th. So definitely be checking then and just in the days leading up to that. But that's a really good question.
And similarly, I'll just add that if you are logging into register for the fair and sign up for sessions now, some employers are going to be a little bit behind the ball and haven't opened or scheduled any sessions yet. So while it is a little bit, seems redundant and repetitive, but you may have to check back if there's an employer that you've got your eye on, but it doesn't look like they have any sessions available. They probably just haven't scheduled them yet. So be sure to check back, semi-regularly to make sure you're not missing any opportunities.
That's a really great point, because just like you have to do 2 steps of registering and signing up for sessions, employers have to do 2 steps of registering and creating their sessions. So some of them have registered, but have not created their sessions yet. So it's up to you how you handle it, but you could set a weekly reminder for yourself and go in and, once a week, see what the new sessions and employers are and sign up.
And it looks like we have a few questions in the chat.
Great.
So work authorization under sessions, please share what work authorized to work means for F1 holders looking for internships. So
what authorized to work means? That's a great question. For the most part, I'm going to encourage you to maybe we could like schedule a follow-up appointment after this and talk about what that means for you, just because it is so different for like every possible situation. We can talk about like how best to fill out that work authorization section. So that might be a great reason to schedule, either email me or Melissa or Abby, or set up a career coaching appointment and we can look at that together. Unless Melissa or Abby, you have anything that you want to add right now.
I think one thing I was wondering is, does it say when you look at the employers that have registered, is there a line item or area where it says what work authorization they're looking for?
Yes.
Okay. That could be one thing to look at. Yeah, I think a follow-up appointment is always a good way to go, or email us your specific questions.
Mm-hmm. But you can, when you read about each employer, you can kind of see what they're looking for in terms of work authorization. So that's a place to start for sure. Great question.
And then we have another question. Would it be more beneficial to sign up for one-on-one sessions as opposed to group sessions, or vice versa?
Great question. I can kick off with the answer to that. And the answer is it's up to you. So I realize that that's not a super helpful answer, but I think it depends on what your goals are at the fair and also what employers are offering. So there's some employers who are only offering group sessions or only offering one-on-one sessions. So I'd say let that be the first deciding factor, like see what's even available. And then be thinking about what your goal is. Like, are you attending the fair to just sort of start exploring and gather some information? Is that the stage that you're at in your process? Or are you attending because you want to like make a connection with a recruiter and like see if you can get a lead for a job or internship and like apply for it? I'd say for those like really like relationship building oriented ones, it's nice to do a one-on-one session if you can, right? It's just you and the employer, you have a connection, as opposed to being like one person in a group of people. But you can also do both, right? Like you could go to a group session, get some information there, and then like have a one-on-one session afterwards and even refer to some things that you heard and you liked in the group session. So you don't have to necessarily choose. If there's an employer that you're really excited about, I'd say like sign up for both. Sign up for a group session and sign up for a one-on-one session. It's a great way to stand out. Good question.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that if you're feeling like, oh, I don't know if I should sign up for a one-on-one session, you don't necessarily need a reason to sign up for a one-on-one session. It can be a great way to just make a contact with someone. If we think about if we're in a fair in person, you're kind of wandering around and meeting people. So we still want to instill that same feel where, you know, you're just meeting people and using it as an opportunity to do so.
Absolutely. You don't have to be like planning to apply for a job tomorrow in order to go to a one-on-one session by any stretch. You can just like meet to make a connection. That's great. Are there any other questions?
That actually segues really nicely into the next slide.
Perfect. Okay, so we will move into the next slide. I'm going to hand it over to Melissa to talk a little bit about how to really prepare for these sessions and make the most of them. And then we're going to have time for more Q&A at the end. So if you didn't get your question answered, we can get to it then.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sabrina, for walking us through, how to use Handshake, the technical side of what we can expect as we're going into navigating this fair. And this second part of the presentation is going to be now more focused on how to prepare for those one-on-one or group sessions, and maybe even thinking about what can our action plan be after today's workshop to schedule in all that preparation work that you want to do. But first of all, let's just step back almost even and just think about what are our actual goals for the career fair. What are our intentions? What are we hoping to get out of this event and experience? So for the individual who just asked that question around the difference between one-on-one and group sessions, I thought that answer segued really well into this content for this slide. And I wanted to acknowledge also that all of our goals are going to look very different as we go into this event, especially considering the very diverse nature of our student body and that this fair is open to all years. So no matter what year you are at SU, even for our graduate students and for our recent alum, and all academic programs, like everyone's welcome. So we will all have different goals going into the experience, which is great. For some of us, we might be looking to really get into those one-on-one sessions to build meaningful connections with employers and the employer reps. Some of us might be looking more just to learn about new companies. Maybe you're more in an exploratory phase. You're looking to attend more group sessions, or you're looking to build those relationships, make that contact. You could continue to keep in touch with that employer rep ongoing, or maybe you just want to learn and try new things out. So I'd love for Sabrina to open this poll that we've created to get a sense from the audience today and all of you, what is your primary goal for attending the career fair? So a new window should have just opened up on your screen asking this question. So please answer, what's your primary goal? I don't think you can give multiple answers. Or if you don't see your goal in this list, feel free to put your goal in the chat. So we'd love to see what you're all hoping to get out of the career and internship fair. So we'll give you a few more seconds. Looks like almost everyone's completed the poll. Great. So if you want to share results, hopefully you can all see the results now. It looks like a large majority of us, or half of us, were looking for internship opportunities. A little under 50% of you are wanting to find new job opportunities. Not as much interest around service learning. Okay, we love our service opportunities, so hopefully maybe you'll just consider exploring some of those as well, and building new relationships. Great. Well, thank you all so much for sharing what you're hoping to get out of this experience. You can close that window if it doesn't close for you. I do just want to encourage you to consider 2 more goals that you should have or could gain a lot from as you enter this event. One is that it really is a relationship building opportunity. And I think Abby and Sabrina have both already spoken to this. And for many of us, I do want to acknowledge that meeting with employers can feel like a very nerve-wracking situation, kind of high anxiety inducing for some of us. This can feel almost like a public speaking event when you attend something like a career fair. And it's really normal to feel that way. It's normal to have the nervousness or the anxiety. And we'll talk a little bit more in a few slides, kind of how to mitigate some of those feelings. But definitely remember that recruiters are normal people. They're humans just like you and I, who have human feelings and emotions. And even sometimes the people coming to this event from the employer side are alumni. So they've been in your shoes. They know what it's like to be an SU student. And we can't always expect to just go to the fair and get a job on the spot. But what we can 100% expect is that we have this opportunity to develop these connections. It might be in what feels like a really short interaction if it's, for example, in a 10-minute one-on-one session, but this could really be the start of an ongoing conversation, and you get to share more about yourself beyond those shorter sessions throughout the recruitment or hiring process. If you're a first or second year student and you're wondering, should I still go to the fair? Is this still a valuable experience for me? I would say yes, because as a student who's so early in their academic career, if you go to the career and internship fair, the recruiters often come back year after year to our fairs, so they will likely recognize you and remember you from that fair that you attended a year ago. So this is really a chance to stand out in the hiring process just by showing that you're serious about it and that you continue to show up to events like this. And finally, stay open-minded. Try new things that maybe you didn't anticipate trying initially. Remember that first job or that next internship might not be that dream position or dream company yet. That's okay. A lot of us experience that in our career paths, but consider how the opportunity might still provide some value to you in your journey or help you get to that dream job or that dream company. So as you're considering opportunities at the fair, ask yourself three questions. Does this opportunity align with my interests? Does it align with my values? Does the opportunity allow me to use the skills I like to use or to develop skills that I want to develop? And if you say yes to any of those 3 questions, then the opportunity might have more value for you than you originally might have anticipated. So let's now move to the next slide. I forgot to tell you to have the question pop up, but that's okay. So up next, we have how to now leave a positive first impression. First impressions do mean a lot, so we want to make sure that we're having meaningful and positive interactions, especially in those one-on-one sessions. So how do you actually go about doing that? Well, we do have some tips and best practices to share with you. First of all is to develop and start practicing your personal introduction. I know like all of my team, we've talked a lot about personal introductions and what could those look like. I would encourage and invite you all to try to share more than just your name, your major, and your year in school. So when you get into that one-on-one session, you're meeting that recruiter for the first time, you could say something like, "Hi, I'm Melissa, and I'm a second-year student in the Master of Nonprofit Leadership program." Like, great, that is an introduction, and those are important facts about you, but let's say even more cool things about yourself. So try to add on to that base introduction by adding in maybe a couple of facts or projects or experiences you're currently going through that would be relevant to that employer, or even consider tacking on a goal, like a goal of what you want to get out of the career fair or what you're currently aiming to achieve in your career path. So if I were to build off of that initial introduction, I might say something like, "Hi, I'm Melissa Minato. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a current student at Seattle University, a second-year student in the Master of Nonprofit Leadership program. And for my capstone project, I'm researching diversity, equity, and inclusion and how those values play a role in service year organizations. So I was so excited to see that you, a service year organization, City Year, have registered for the fair. And I'm looking forward to seeing where there might be alignment between my career goals and what you're looking to recruit for today." That's a much longer statement, but you get to know a lot more about me as a candidate. The other thing we really want to do as we're preparing for these different sessions is to research companies ahead of time. As we're going into sessions, you want to come with these meaningful and thoughtful questions. And in order to craft those questions, we have to do that research. This can be one of, I think, the most tedious parts of preparing for the career and internship fair is to go into Google, go into Handshake, look up what are the companies recruiting for, pre-read the different job descriptions or internship descriptions, go and visit the company website and visit their careers page to learn more about what it's like to work for that company. That's quite a bit of research. So depending on how many companies you want to talk with at the career fair, that could take up some time. But from that, it's going to really allow you to think about what is the most relevant information about me that I want to communicate during my short one-on-ones with this company, and what are the questions that I still want to ask. We want to ask questions from these recruiters more than just kind of the base information that you could easily have found on their website, like, what is your company's mission? Or tell me what you do. What are you recruiting for today? That's probably all information you easily could have found online. So let's go deeper. Let's ask some more thought-provoking questions. And I'd even ask if any of you have questions that you like to ask employers during informational interviews or one-on-one sessions. Abby or Sabrina, I know Justin's on the call. If any of you have favorite questions, feel free to put those in the chat. And next up, stay mindful of timing. Yes, you do have just 10 minutes in those one-on-one sessions. And for some of us, 10 minutes might not feel like very long. But like Sabrina said earlier, in an in-person fair, you probably would have had even less time than 10 minutes. You would have been in line waiting to talk to somebody. You maybe would have had just a few minutes to talk to that recruiter. So we want to really optimize that 10 minutes by making sure that we're prepared for that we're arriving on time to those sessions. And if you want to get a sense of what 10 minutes even feels like, I would encourage you to maybe find a time with a friend or a family member and schedule a time to connect over the phone or over Zoom and just put 10 minutes on the clock. And you can even do like a mock interview with each other where one of you is pretending to be an employer and one person is the student, and you can ask questions of each other and just see what does that 10 minutes really feel like in terms of timing. And finally, attendance communication. Sabrina already spoke to this, but I'll re-hit it because it is so important. And that is that if you know that you've signed up for a session, but you later find you can't make it to that session time, we know that emergencies happen or urgent stuff comes up, so we have to change our schedules. And you all as students are carrying multiple responsibilities as once. Just make sure to go back into Handshake and to hit that cancel button as soon as you can. That will allow another student to have the opportunity to take that spot, which is great, to be nice to your colleagues and your peers in that way. And also, we don't want you to tarnish your reputation with the company by being a no-show. Because as Sabrina said earlier, the companies do have access to that data in Handshake to see maybe who didn't show up to the fair. So we definitely don't want you to come across as badly in the recruitment process. But let's take a moment of self-reflection right now and think about and consider this question, which I'll have Sabrina pop up on the screen for us. What are 2 or 3 things that you are proud of or excited to share with recruiters at the fair? So if you had a one-on-one session today, what are some of the things about yourself that you would want to share? That could be class experiences, maybe something you're doing with the Center for Community Engagement, maybe a leadership position you're currently involved in. So if you want to write that down, if you've got pen and paper in front of you, you can start making those notes on what you want to share with recruiters now. And I'd also invite, if all of you could enter maybe one thing that you could share with a recruiter today into the chat. I would love to read and see what all of you are thinking you want to share. And by sharing, you also might inspire another student to think about something they hadn't previously considered sharing. Awesome, personal projects, that's great. We'll give you all just a few seconds to enter your comments in the chat. Nice, got summer research, summer jobs, part-time jobs, work experience. Nice, was hired as one of 75 interviewees for a local Seattle radio show internship. That's so cool. Very specific. I like that you're going to be able to provide some details to the recruiter. A lot of research positions. That's great. Well, keep those comments coming, keep putting them in the chat, and I'll keep talking and we'll move on to our next slide. All right, summer internship, great, thanks for adding that in the chat as well. Okay, well, one of the main ways that a virtual fair does diverge from preparing for an in-person fair is that for in-person fairs, you would show up to the biggest room on campus at Seattle U and you would travel from table to table and navigate lots of long lines, a crowded, loud space. So for a virtual fair, you get to cultivate your own space for the fair experience. That does mean you have to do maybe a little more prep work on your end. For example, pre-attending to and thinking about what is the physical space you'll be using for the day of the fair. Having things that you need to take care of yourself during that time is important. Having water, snacks, tea, coffee nearby, whatever you need, that self-care, the sustenance that you'll need to get through this long event, especially if you're planning to do back-to-back sessions and you might not have time to go like grab food from your kitchen or run out and get food. We also want to make sure that we're dressing appropriately. I think business casual top is a good way to go. And obviously on Zoom, we're primarily focused on what shirt you're wearing or what's going on up here. I also think it could be fun maybe to wear some Seattle U gear. So if you've got a Seattle U shirt or sweatshirt, kind of show off that you're a Red Hawk. Maybe employers would like that. Seems pretty spirited. Even more important than dress, though, I think, is just showing up and ready to be engaged. That's something that can really help you stand out in the process. And Sabrina spoke to this earlier, but if you are even in a group session, trying your best to even just ask one question, unmute yourself, ask a question, put a question in the chat. That's really what recruiters are looking for, is good engagement, and that's what helps you stand out in a virtual setting. If you find that the day of the fair you can't have your camera on, we're all in shared spaces, loud spaces. I know a lot of us are living with roommates or with our families right now. If you can't have your camera on, it's good to sometimes acknowledge that as you're entering, especially a one-on-one, and say something like, I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk to you today. Unfortunately, I can't have my camera on today, or my camera isn't working today, but I'm still excited to talk to you. So just to name it, I think recruiters might fear, oh, your camera's not on, you're not engaged, but really that's not the case. So sometimes it's good just to acknowledge that right off the start of your call. We also want to make sure that you are mentally getting prepared for the fair by de-stressing ahead of time as much as possible, calming any of those nerves. Like I mentioned a couple of slides back, this can be a pretty nerve-wracking event for some of us as we're talking with recruiters. It can feel like there's lots of stress, but also try to get excited, maybe play some music that calms you or gets you excited, because you do get to use this opportunity as a chance to build connections. So Sabrina, if you want to hit the next, yeah, thank you. How do you all like to calm your nerves before an event like this or before public speaking? I really wanted to pose this question to the group because I know most people, the majority of people, do have nerves around public speaking. That's a really common fear. So I'll invite you all right now to put your comments in the chat. How do you like to calm your nerves before public speaking? Exercise. I heard if you're nervous, fight or flight as an instinct kind of kicks in. And so you can kind of trick your mind into thinking you're fleeing the scene, which will help you feel safe by going for a walk before a nerve-wracking situation. Your body's like, oh, great, I'm leaving the situation. But actually, you're kind of just tricking your mind because you're still going to return to it after your walk. So I love that idea. Drinking tea. I've got my tea here. It's great. I like to listen to some good music, maybe like my favorite song at the moment. Taking deep breaths, maybe having some mindfulness using like the Calm app or something beforehand. Awesome. Well, thank you all. Keep putting those ideas. I think some of us are saying things like take energy drinks or have coffee, and some of us are saying don't have coffee. I think caffeine can make us jittery sometimes, so just be mindful of your caffeine consumption. Getting good sleep, I think, is also critical the night before the fair or for any kind of event. And finally, as we're cultivating our spaces, please be considerate of your technology. Go into Handshake beforehand, test your camera, test your audio. I think you are all using those things quite a bit for Zoom classes. Have these physical things in front of you, potentially your resume, so that you can refer to it to talk about your past experiences, notes and questions that you've written down for each employer, and have your schedule for the day nearby, although you can also see it in Handshake. Be mindful of what's around you in your space and behind you. If possible, try to limit noises. If you have a loud dog, maybe put them outside for the day or put them in a different room. Ask roommates to maybe be a bit quieter or to turn off their music. And try to take things away from your background that might be very distracting or inappropriate. Maybe there's like a super bright, loud poster behind me, and that is a distracting element, so I might want to take it down for the day. And of course, we're always ensuring that we're arriving to our sessions on time. And if the employer has asked you to go to an external link for your session, that you're returning to Handshake to make sure that you're on time for that next session start time. That's so many logistics, but please move to the next slide, Sabrina. Okay. Some of you might be wondering, well, what happens after the career fair? What can I expect and anticipate? What are some of the common next steps after I meet and talk to a recruiter at this event? These are some of the most common next steps that you can anticipate, including now starting to tailor those application materials. Most applications will require a resume and a cover letter, but be sure, of course, to always follow the explicit instructions given by the employer in their application materials. If you don't know how to tailor a resume or a cover letter, you could always schedule an appointment with the Career Engagement Office or with the Albers Placement Center, which is the career center for the business school. And we'll talk about how to schedule appointments in just a slide or two. We want to make sure that you're completing and submitting all applications on time. The worst thing that can happen is you learn about an amazing opportunity, but you forgot the deadline or you never wrote it down in your calendar, and then you forgot to turn in your application. So let's have that not happen by writing those due dates into our planners, putting them in our calendars right after the career fair is over. You also can follow up with recruiters by sending them personalized messages of thanks. So if you received an email address or if you asked a contact that you met at the fair, if you could add them on LinkedIn, go ahead and send them that email, send them that message or LinkedIn request. And if you're sending them a LinkedIn request, make sure to add that note to the request, which can specify things like who you were, where you met, and maybe even noting something that was meaningful or that resonated with you from your interaction or conversation at the fair. By personalizing the message a bit, you stand out as an applicant, and the employer will have an easier time remembering who you were on a day when they probably talked to quite a few individuals. And finally, be prepared for additional next steps. For example, maybe after you turn in your applications, you could have some phone screens coming up or some interviews. So anticipate that there could be more work coming down the line in terms of following up with that opportunity. And next slide, Sabrina. I'll just quickly walk through this one, and if you want to hit next again to have the stages come up, thank you. Just to consider all the work that we've shared, these action items you can do can feel quite overwhelming. So my hope is not that you feel overwhelmed. but that today you will consider the fact that you still have a few full weeks to prepare for this fair. That's a lot of time. So how can you break down the work that you now want to do into small, actionable items and steps over the course of the next few weeks? If you saved all of your prep work for just the day or two before the fair, that could be quite stressful, especially when you're also managing your workload for classes. So do yourself a favor and think about, what do I still need to do to get ready for a fair? Just make the list of maybe everything that you want to do to prepare. And from there, just schedule in those items over the course of 3 weeks versus saving it all for a week or two out, or a day or two out. And next slide. So this is my final slide of content, and I just want to say that, first of all, you're all doing a great job preparing. Thank you for taking the time to do this for yourself and attend a workshop like this. That's huge. You've already learned a lot of the best practices, but if you want more support, you definitely have access to it. One thing you can do is schedule a career coaching appointment with my office, the Career Engagement Office. Sabrina and I are both coaches in the office. You can meet with us or with any of our colleagues, and we offer 30-minute virtual appointments. We can help you on a number of topics, anything from how to write a resume, how to prepare for the fair, what should I do after college, how do I discern what is right for me in those steps ahead. And you can schedule those appointments by visiting the Career Engagement Office website. Additionally, Handshake has a great student blog with tons of support articles, including this one that I really like, 10 tips when attending a virtual fair. And Abby, if you would like to also share about Albers Placement Center coaching, that would be great.
Yes, absolutely. I will drop the link in the chat right now. But similarly, you can schedule an appointment with myself, with Mary Lou Moffett, or with Megan Spalding, who are all three of our undergrad career advisors, and then Justin and Mary Lucy, our grad students. So I will drop the link in there now.
Awesome. I was just rereading the chat and all of these great comments around how to de-stress, especially singing out loud. Like, that's one of my favorites too. That's all of our prepared content, so we can get back to doing Q&A. I'm also mindful of time. If anyone needs to leave the call to get ready for their next activity for class, you can do that. But I think, Sabrina, how long are we staying to answer questions? Till 1:30?
We're here till 1:30 and can take questions. And if you do have to take off for class and you have sort of follow-up lingering questions, you can always email me or Abby or Melissa. We can put those email addresses in the chat. But yeah, bring on your questions.
We do have one in the chat. Oh, go ahead, Abby.
Oh, I was just going to say one more thing I actually forgot to mention was we are going to host drop-in hours. So I'll drop the day before the career fair. So if you have last minute questions, need help scheduling time with an employer, need a last minute resume review, we will be available the day before the fair on the 21st from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So I'll drop that link in the chat as well.
Thanks, Abby. One of the questions I see in the chat is, would you mind showing us how to see the attending companies and job recruiters on Handshake at the upcoming fair? One more time, please. So where can you find that in Handshake, Sabrina?
What I'll do is I will just screen share exactly what that looks like.
Thank you.
Let me bring up Handshake. If I can find it. Okay. Here we go. So we're back to Handshake. Oops, gotta log back in. Maybe, thinking about it. All right, so here we are, we're on the Handshake homepage. Again, you can get to the fair by like following the link in the emails that you've gotten, or you can just type in here, Spring Career and Internship Fair. And here it is. So if we click on this and you sort of scroll down, so this is like the description of the fair. Feel free to read that. It's a lot of what we've talked about today, some tips for how to participate and prepare. And then it brings you to employers attending. And right now we have 14 employers registered. We expect that number to go way up. A lot of employers register over the next couple of weeks, but right now we have 14 employers registered, and you can see sort of like a preview here. But if you want to see all of them, you would just click show all, and it will bring them all up for you to like read a little bit more about them, the kinds of opportunities they're offering, stuff like that. Once you've actually registered, you're going to see something really similar, but it will also list any sessions that these employers are offering. So if they've already created sessions that you can sign up for, those will show up underneath their name and you'll be able to see the times, click on them, sign up. I hope that helps. Let me know if you have more questions about that. Any other questions?
It looks like your answer helped. They said it was extremely helpful.
So glad.
What would be our number one goal during our one-on-one session?
That's a fantastic question. We can probably all weigh in on that. My first response to that question is going to be that we can't really tell you what your number one goal is going to be because that is so specific to you. I think everyone is going to have a different goal for these sessions. Examples of goals someone might have, like one person, it might just be, I would like to learn more about this organization and what they're looking for in a candidate. That's a great goal. Or it could be like, I would like to make sure this employer knows who I am, knows these two things about me, and knows that I'm going to apply for a position with them next week. Like that's another, other end of the spectrum. You could have that goal. Just being curious is a goal in itself, right? It could just be like, I'm curious. I want to know more about this employer. I want to explore. I want to leave this session knowing more than I knew when I went into it. That's a really good goal. But yeah, Melissa or Abby, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I would just echo what you said, Sabrina. I think at the very least, it's an opportunity to make a connection and build a relationship with someone. So whether it leads to a job or an internship, or at least you're getting a connection. So I would just say use that opportunity to foster the connection and relationship.
I think relationship building is huge. Like even if maybe there was a company recruiting, but they weren't maybe necessarily recruiting for something I was looking for, I could still maybe use the one-on-one to make a connection internally with the org. And at the end of the session, I'd try to ask a question like, how can we stay in touch? Or what is the best way for me to reach out to you in the future? Would you be open to me connecting with you on LinkedIn? Or could I have an email address from you to provide like a thank you follow-up email? So kind of figuring out what's the best way to stay in touch with that person.
Yeah, something you can always ask at the end of an interaction with an employer is, what's the next step? Or what can I do? How can I follow up? Or what's the best way for us to be in touch? Or questions like that. So they might say, connect with me on LinkedIn, or they might give you their email address, or they might say, oh, we have an application deadline coming up. So it's nice to just explicitly ask that question, what's the next step? And they'll tell you. Thank you for these really thoughtful questions so far. Does anybody else have any lingering questions here before we say goodbye for the day? I know I'm planning to be on the call till 1:30, so if anybody wants to stick around and ask anything, feel free. But we'll also send out a little follow-up after this with the recording and our email addresses and all of that, so that you can reach us.